You know what? They told me don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. So I'm going to put videos on the internet about Heathrow Airport. The whole reason I got into aviation was because I was fascinated by flight. Studied aerospace engineering, so I understand the physics of flying. I've tried flying a plane, but it just never gave me the buzz. I wanted to actually fly, and I realized that I was afraid of this because actually this is exactly what I wanted. Was it that easy to do that? Yeah, this could be the thing. This could be the thing that I take to TV. I approached the producer. This is the problem that I'm gonna solve and this is how I'm gonna solve it. And I saw his eyes light up. Oh, we need to capture this. We need to do this. I was like, all right, cool, I'll do it.
So, welcome to another episode of Faster Podcast, where we give you the inside look into the lives of high-level individuals and their secrets to success. My name is Simon De Beatis, and today I'm joined by a very special individual, Mo Taher, who I actually went to university with, and since then he's been doing some very exciting things. So, Mo, I'll let you do a little introduction into what is it that you do.
Thank you. So thank you, Simon, first for having me on the podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. After graduating from uni, I graduated and I work as an engineer at Heathrow Airport, but to be honest with you, that's just the surface of it. I do a lot more other stuff. Outside of work, I'm a motivational speaker. I've done TEDx talks. I run workshops for organizations and for teams to inspire the next generation. I create a lot of content behind the scenes at Heathrow to educate the next generation. But overall, I mean, what I do is I just want to get every single person to understand the value they contain within and then to unlock that value and to really make the most out of their lives. So however I try and do that, basically that's a full-time job.
That's amazing. So basically, to give a little introduction to people, we met at Brunel University when I was doing mechanical engineering there. Unfortunately for myself, I clearly wasn't made for engineering, so I ended up dropping out after a year. But take us through that journey from where we were at university to joining Heathrow Airport. How did that all pan out?
I mean, there's the logical sort of journey in terms of like I applied here and I done that, but I think that's not really the journey that would be the most valuable to talk about. I think it was the internal journey that really, really changed me. During my third year, when I worked for placement year, I worked for a company called Lufthansa for the airline, the German airline. But while I worked with them, I actually played American football, and during that time of me playing American football, I unlocked a side of me that I never realized existed. And that was a side where I wanted to become the best version of myself, both on the pitch and off the pitch. I started to read books. I started to discover more about myself. I started to understand how my brain works. And I think that is what carried me through to get the job at Heathrow Airport. It wasn't the fact that I just applied. It was the fact that I took some real time out to start asking myself questions to get the best out of me as an individual.
That's fascinating. So were you always sort of minded in that way, or is that something that you developed through university? How did that pan out? How did you start developing that mindset? Was it through reading? Was it through someone you met?
So I met somebody who once described to me their mindset about the world. And I remember being so amazed by how they've just described their outlook on life. I asked him, I was like, bro, where did you get this from? Like, where, like I was like straight up, like, where does one learn this?
Yeah.
And he recommended me to a particular book called The User Guide to Balance. It's a book that's built upon like a lot of Buddhist principles, but it was all about mindfulness. It was about the mind. It was about potential and actually how to unlock the potential in your mind, body, and soul. I only ever read the mind part of that book, and I went off on the biggest tangent, like understanding sort of the mind, which then made me realize that actually there's a lot to me. But before then, I didn't care, man. I was just sort of living my life. I didn't have any ambitions to unlock parts of me that I didn't know exist. I was just.
Are you still close to that person? Do you still know that?
I don't know. I don't really.
So it was just a random encounter that sort of changed the tangent that your life was heading into.
100%. He was on the American football team. He was one of the team. You know, we chilled for a couple of times, but I never really chatted to him afterwards. I popped up to him, really like after sort of my life took a change and stuff. I went back to him. I'm like, by the way, like, just to let you know, you've had a significant impact on my life. And he's like, nah, man, that's all you, bro. That's all you.
I think it just shows how powerful that butterfly effect really is, right? And I mean, you're doing it directly because you're actually aiming to help people. You're aiming to inspire people and motivate people, as your even your Instagram username is actually motivate, which is a play on words on your name. But even if that's not your main goal in life, I feel like you should always, try to do the best for other people, because you never know when you're going to impact someone.
Yeah, and not only someone, but just the entire society.
Absolutely, because for him, it could have been, like you said, a random encounter. Maybe he didn't even feel like he said anything that significant, but you never know how you're going to impact someone else. And, sometimes one sentence can completely change the outlook of that. So, okay, we fast forward to Heathrow. What was your initial role at Heathrow, sort of straight from university? Was it a graduate role?
Yeah, exactly that. So a graduate program, engineering graduate program specifically. So what that means is that for about 2 years and a half, I went around Heathrow Airport, the busiest airport in the UK, and I was just discovering all the different parts of engineering that keep this thing working. So everything from the train systems underground to the systems that are outside the terminal buildings, to the baggage systems, to the electrical systems, the water systems. I basically got an insight into all the different parts of the puzzle that, as passengers, when you walk into a terminal, you don't even think about. But as an engineering team, we need to make sure they work, because otherwise everything will fall apart.
And then eventually, what department did you end up sort of settling into?
So I settled into the airside environment. So that's basically everything outside the terminal building that interacts with the aircraft. I love that place. Love that place so much, man.
And I think for most people that look at your brand and see what you do, they would probably be asking the question, how did you start filming that much in Heathrow? Because, of course, I'm guessing there are certain security procedures involved and things like that, because I've never personally, before discovering what you were doing, I never really saw anyone film inside an airport to that level and to that degree. So how did that journey develop? How did you approach Heathrow to even start doing that? Because I think that's a very unusual thing to do.
The truth is, I didn't approach them to start. So when I joined Heathrow Airport on the graduate program, they told us something. They said, if you have any ideas, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. Because if you ask for permission, you're just going to get told no. So don't ask for permission. They literally told us this. And I was like, you know what?
Literally.
Literally. I took it and I ran with it. I was like, you know what? They told me don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. So I'm going to put videos on the internet about Heathrow Airport.
So what was the goal initially? Because I know it's obviously developed into a very significant project and a big part of your life. But what was the goal initially with just filming?
Here's what it was. I felt so privileged to have the level of access that I did that I thought I would be selfish just to keep it to myself. That's what it was, because I grew up from an ethnic minority background, right? We don't have the privilege that all these people who are born and raised here, like white people have, where their dad works here or their brother works there. And when I looked around, I realized that actually this place was just, the jobs here are just getting passed on to cousins and brothers and daughters and sons, all within these families. And actually, the people on the outside world don't even realize the opportunities there are in this place. And the fact that I stumbled upon these opportunities, I felt like it was a duty on me to pass this on. Otherwise, I'm just being selfish. So I started to make videos because I wanted people who are like me to realize there's so much opportunity in this place to create a career for yourself if you enjoy it. I love aviation as a kid, but I never thought about the airport. I always thought about the aeroplanes. So when I started to discover there's so much to do with the airport, I felt like it was my duty to share it.
Yeah, and well, that's incredible. And when I was looking through your Instagram, I saw that there was a post about you meeting with, he's a famous YouTuber. I think his name is Ali Abdal, yeah? I think he does, he used to be a doctor for the NHS, right? And then he went on to becoming a creator. And I remember you made a post about how you paid £700 for his YouTube course. I think it's called the Part-Time YouTuber. Let's talk a little bit about investing in yourself, because I think even the comments on your post, a lot of the people were saying that, oh, that's too expensive. Like, do you know any free resources? But I feel like a lot of these people then have no problem spending, £1,500 on a holiday, or maybe £600 to buy some designer clothes and things like that. So, how did that impact you? And do you normally invest in yourself and buy a lot of these courses and things like that?
I generally have a budget per year to invest in myself. And that's everything from, like, this year I spent on a skydiving license.
Yeah,
always worked on that as well. Or it's courses, or it's something where I know that I am going to develop because of it. And I all started really actually. I bought, like I read a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, right?
Of course, yeah.
On my journey,
Yeah.
as many people do, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and I started to realize the power of investing. And I was like, I need to invest in myself. So once I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw an advert that had like a housing market, like it was literally a property course, free, the typical free property course. So I go to this event and it was in a hotel next to Heathrow Airport. This was ages ago, back in uni times. And I remember it was like a funnel event, right?
Yeah,
and I actually went and I actually bought this course for £1,000 by the end of the event. It was £1,000 and I was like, you know what? This isn't a decision to go into property. This is a commitment to myself that I want out of the rat race, whatever it takes. So whether I'm gonna buy this course or at some point in the near future, I went on to buy the YouTube course because I discovered more about myself and I realized this is where I want to invest instead of this. The whole concept was built upon the idea of I don't want to live a normal life, so therefore I can't just do normal things. I need to do things that other people will call me stupid for doing. And other people aren't willing to do. They're looking for the freebies. But actually, I feel like when you invest in yourself financially, you raise the stakes. All of a sudden, you take this more seriously. If you want to do it the free way, then you'll always have an excuse why not to do it. But when you've paid real money for something, you're going to take it more seriously.
Yeah, and I think there's a big difference between, like you said, certain courses are there just to get money out of you, and other courses are there that are priced at a certain price range because they will actually want people to, like you said, put things into action. Because if you get something for free, most of the time you don't appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's the whole thing behind pricing a course at a certain price range, is that you do need to, it does need to sting a little bit when you pay for it. So then you're like, well, listen, I already paid £700 for this, let me implement it. So you buy the course, where does it go to from there? Do you start implementing what you learned straight away and growing your personal brand?
So I had already started building my personal brand up until that point, but what I didn't realize was actually that there's more people out there doing this. And I think the most powerful thing that this course gave me was a community of creators who were on the same journey. And they were all dedicated and they were all had their vision in mind. Because what it makes you realize is that, number one, you're not insane. Because we live in a society where your family will tell you to go get a proper job when you want to tell them that you want to make content. Everyone around you will tell, all your friends are just improper, like normal jobs.
Yeah.
And you're not surrounded by people who are on this vision of becoming a content creator. So instantly you may feel like you're just being a weirdo. Like, why don't I just go do this normal stuff? Being surrounded by people who on this part-time YouTuber Academy actually was the part of the empowerment that said, you know what, I can actually make a living out of this. Like, once you believe that you can actually make a living out of this, you go up a gear in the way that you even think about it, the way you approach it, how seriously you take it. It shifts something in your mind when you surround yourself with those type of people who also have it in their mind that they want to take this seriously.
I think that's extremely powerful, having the right network around you and the right group of individuals, because like you said, it's that sort of crabs in the bucket mentality that a lot of people have, where if you're amongst a group of friends that aren't very supportive, not only will they not help you build what you're trying to build, they're also going to drag you down.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be amongst that group of people and you're going to say, well, I can't go on holiday because I want to buy a camera for £1,000.
Exactly.
They're going to call you an idiot.
Exactly. Oh, stop on, man. You're not just film on your iPhone.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas if you find the right group of people, they will always help you grow. And like you said, they'll help you break those limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
Like you said, you maybe before joining the course, you didn't think that it was going to be possible to even become a YouTuber. Whereas like afterwards, clearly that wasn't the case. So, it's called the Part-Time YouTuber Academy. And going back to the whole part-time aspect, how do you balance being a creator and work in a very demanding job, such as obviously engineering at Heathrow?
The real answer is you don't. There's no balance. There's
no balance.
It's a myth, man. Like you work. Here's what I think. Here's what I tell myself. Between the age of 20 to 30 years old, this is my time to grind and create the life that I want. So if I want balance, then you're gonna be stuck in the rat race forever, right? If your mindset is, oh, I want a balanced, chill sort of lifestyle, then fine, you can have that. But also that will come with its consequences, right?
Of course.
If you want something more than the regular, then you have to be willing to put in more than the regular type of person. And I genuinely tell myself, like, yeah, it's hard. Yeah, you're up all night sometimes editing. yeah, you know, it's a lot to respond to all these messages and to try and build a genuine community of people who care. Like every day, bro, I wake up and I probably have like 300 messages that I need to respond to. Do you know what I mean? And I try to. It's impossible to respond to every.
all of them.
It's
Yeah,
a
for
full-time job. But I tell myself that if I don't attempt this, then I'll get to the age of 30, 40, 50, and I'll have zero excuses. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you deserve what you get.
Yeah.
You know. So
You can't have 1% results with 99% mentality, right?
yeah, you have to put action.
And
There's need to be a percentage.
I've noticed the exact same thing. When you're building something of your own and you got a full-time job and you got all these other things going on, a lot of people are going to be like, well, why don't you rest? Why don't you sleep for a little bit and blah, blah, blah. But you realize that if you do want to get those maximum results, unfortunately, you do have to make those sacrifices. And speaking of sacrifice, and I think I want to get onto giving. And I know you're quite heavily involved in charity work. So what charities are you currently involved with and to what capacity? I think I really want to touch on that.
So I work with a charity mainly called the Zahra Trust. And they look after a lot of orphans in Iraq. The reason why that touches me so much is because I'm Iraqi, first of all, but more so than that is that at any given fate, right, I could have been born into a family which then meant I became an orphan, right, in Iraq. My dad happened to come to the UK at some point in his life, which meant that I get to live this life, and I'm so blessed to count my blessings to be here. But had I not been here, I could have been that kid who needed help. So for me, that's something that I really think about. From an Islamic perspective, we believe charity isn't something that you do out of the kindness of your heart. It's something that is an obligation upon you. So we believe that God distributes his wealth in ways where he will provide to you so that you can go provide to somebody else. He might not provide to them directly, but he'll provide to them through you. So it's your obligation to pass on what he's given to you. And that's something where, you know, working with charity isn't something that I'd be like, oh yeah, I do that as like an extra thing. This is my duty, like on earth. You're sent here to add value to other people's lives, whether that's through money, whether that's through information, whether that's through service. You can serve in so many different ways. And I think service is the key. You know, there's a term called service leadership, which I'm sure you're familiar with, right?
Yeah, I've heard of it, yeah.
Service leadership is actually when you serve somebody to the point where you become their leader, just because you've actually served them so much where if you ask them to do something or if you do a certain thing, they value you so much because of how much you've served them and helped them that instantly they will follow you. And when people follow you, you have become their leader. That's just what service leadership is all about. So I think that giving back and actually giving is one of the foundations to building anything in this life. You have to give.
So let's touch a little bit on the importance of faith in your everyday life, in your religion, and of course you are very religious. How does that impact your day-to-day as far as like how big of a role does it play in your everyday actions?
So I'm a Muslim, right? So in Islam we pray 5 times a day. What is prayer? Prayer is a time where you take out of your day to become mindful of your blessings and the fact that you have been put on this earth for a reason, right? And that's a really important thing to remind yourself of 5 times a day. But it also is like my moral compass, right? So things that constantly in my mind is, for example, you know, love for your brother what you love for yourself. That's something that my faith teaches me, because it's these actions that are there to purify our soul. As a concept, faith for me, when I've started to truly learn about it and to understand it deeply, it is a set of guidelines that we can apply to our lives to purify our soul to become the most amazing version of yourself on earth. That's what faith means to me. And actually the most amazing version of me is the version that reflects God the most, because God is the ultimate, infinite perfection. So therefore, if I can get closer to that, that means that I can reflect that on earth. And what is God? God is mercy, God is kindness, God is love and prosperity. So if I can do that in my life, if I can make that my mission to become kind and merciful on this earth, then I'll be a reflection of Him on earth and I'll have the purest soul.
It's very interesting that you mentioned sort of practicing gratitude through prayer.
Yeah.
Because many people, especially, of course, especially people who aren't Muslim, maybe they won't realize how much of that is part of prayer.
Yeah.
And I think I've already spoken to a few people about this, and they all say that gratitude was one of the main key factors to their success.
Yes.
It's not only chasing the next thing, it's also appreciating what you have now. And like you said, us both being immigrants, we understand how blessed we are to have things that a lot of people take for granted.
Yeah.
You know, having access to things like Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Having access to education, having access to all these opportunities. And going into opportunities, what would be some of the advice you'd give to, let's say, someone who's like a 16-year-old version of you, right? They're, let's say, child of an immigrant and they're of a minority background. What would you tell them if they're struggling on their journey and they feel like they're outcast, like you say, maybe they're trying to break into an industry that's predominantly, let's say, white British, or they feel like they're a bit of an outcast? How did you deal with that stuff? What helped you progress in your journey?
There's two things here that are really, really important. One of the main things is actually you need to really dig deep in yourself to understand your value, because if you are unsure of your value, when you step into a place like that, you're too wishy-washy. There's a risk where you'll just go with the flow of whatever they might want, because you think this is what they might want, so this is what I'll sort of change in myself just so that I hope they accept me.
Mold yourself into their image rather than being yourself. Okay.
Exactly. So the moment you do that, you've lost yourself. And the moment you've lost yourself, you cannot bring the best version of yourself because you've lost your foundation, right? So what's really important is you ask yourself difficult questions to understand who you truly are and actually really scrutinize your actions in the real world to see, am I truly being my true self? And I'll give you an example. The younger version of me, right? The 16-year-old version of me used to pretend to enjoy football. It used to pretend to enjoy celebrity culture. It used to pretend to be something that I truly was not at my core. And the result of that is that I got nowhere. But when I decided, actually, you know what, I'm not going to pretend to be anyone. I'm going to be my true self. You know, I love planes, I love aviation, I love physics, I like maths. I'm a nerd and I like philosophy, I like psychology, I like understanding how the brain works. And wherever I go, I present that version of myself. I started to begin to attract people who appreciate that version of me, the true version of who I am. And before that, I wasn't attracting anyone. Like when I was in college, the moment I finished college, I still haven't spoken to a single person who I used to be friends with in college, because the person I presented was completely fake. So the group of friends that I had in college, till now, I haven't spoken to a single version of them.
Yeah,
That's powerful.
I was actually in a very similar situation, because throughout school and even a little bit of college, I was like you said, you find a group of friends and then you try to fit in.
Yeah.
So you start doing whatever they do, and it doesn't matter if you enjoy it or don't enjoy it, rather than being yourself. And I think part of it is growing up, right? You understand that you're not meant to always fit in, and there are billions of people on this earth, and eventually you find a group of people that are just like you and that you can be yourself around. I think what helped me a lot is that I stopped trying to be a people pleaser and trying to be friends with everyone, and just decided to be like, listen, if I have to spend the rest of my life on my own, but doing things I love, I'll do that. But you know that's never the case, right? Because a few months into trying to be yourself, all of a sudden you're, oh wait, there's other idiots just like me who enjoy the stuff I enjoy. And
those are the real friends you want.
They are, like, honestly, they're the realest ones, because as you can imagine, as soon as I started being myself, I've lost a lot of my friends.
Yes.
And I started getting phone calls like, oh, why aren't you doing this with us? Why aren't you going out to drink and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, because like I'm doing other stuff. Like, and they thought that was the sign of me saying, oh, like, I don't like you and blah, blah. But it was just me growing up, and outgrowing that fake self that I had developed. But obviously you are a very interesting individual. You're aviation mad. So let's talk about your most recent adventure. Let's go back into more light topic. You lived in a caravan in the middle of a field for a week. So what was up with that?
Yeah, thanks for putting it like that. Yeah,
that's the intro.
That's literally how it started. So I've always wanted. The whole reason I got into aviation was because I was fascinated by flight. Now, I studied aerospace engineering, so I understand the physics of flying.
Yeah.
I've tried flying a plane, but it just never gave me the buzz. You know, I just felt like I was operating this thing that was flying.
Yeah.
So I wanted to actually fly, right? And the way you actually fly is you get in a plane and you jump out. So I spent the past week getting my skydiving license. I was up in Nottingham, in a place where I was jumping out of a plane 6 times a day.
Wow.
Until I got my license. And
So
now I'm
how many
fully
jumps
qualified.
did you do?
18.
Wow.
Yeah, something called the accelerated free fall course. So yeah, literally.
Accelerated free fall. That's very engineering speak for falling out of a plane.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So in the future, would you like to move up onto things like wingsuits and things like that?
Exactly, man. I
that bit of
want
you?
to be able to just like, there was one thing when I was up there, and they call it tracking. And what you do is you straighten out your legs, and then you move your hands from in front of you, and you start to put them like behind you like this. And then you're literally flying through the sky.
Slicing through
You're
it.
slicing through, and it's the best feeling because then you're steering, like you steer using your shoulders, and you're just like, you're literally carving the sky, and you're moving around, you're turning.
That must be
It's just-
surreal.
it's
How did your
absolutely unbelievable.
engineering knowledge and your understanding of all of the concepts behind
Yeah.
what happens when you skydive, how did that impact the whole experience? Did it make it more scary, less scary? Did you even think about it?
When you're turning, you actually think about these things. So when they describe it to you, they're like, imagine your chest is like a wing, right? And I'm like, I know the aerodynamics, and they're like, oh, you have to move it this way so that you go that way. I'm like, yeah, man, I get this stuff. I understand this stuff.
That's really interesting because I think obviously most people would never have that approach to it, right? And your understanding of it was so much deeper than those other people. So I guess in the future, when you're there with 10 million subscribers and you got unlimited money coming in, are you gonna get into the stuff that Gravity are working on with the?
Bro.
Yeah, I thought I'd touch on that. I knew you'd enjoy that.
So Gravity is an interesting one, and I think this conversation will segue post-grad. So Gravity jetpacks is like a dream, right? That's
Just in case you missed it, he said jetpacks.
jetpacks. So Gravity manufacture jetpacks, like actual real life jetpacks. 2 engines on either hand, like 2 hand engines here, 2 engines here, and a big engine on your back. And then you literally just force yourself off the ground, and then you literally fly like you're Iron Man. That's the most liberating sensation. Like right now, my like BTEC alternative to that is like a wheel. Like
you
I have
have
an
your one
extra
wheel.
unicycle. Yeah, that's like my thing, man. I feel like I'm free when I'm on that thing. But like I wanna get into like the suits, and I wanna.
Did you ever work with them to any capacity? Did you ever try to get in touch with them?
You know what? And this is why I told you the conversation is gonna segue, because I have been in touch with them, and they've invited me to their facility. And I went cold on the emails because I was like, shit, is this actually happening?
Okay, so what do you mean by you went cold?
So they told me, email us in October, and we'll organize a visit for you to come down. And I never got back to them. And this was last year, October.
Really?
You know, there's this saying that says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. I've never understood that until this situation happened to me. And I realized that I was afraid of this because actually this is exactly what I wanted. And I realized that, was it that easy to do that? And it creates so much fear in me, like, whoa, did this actually just happen? And then it's like when you have your dreams right in front of you, sometimes you freeze. Like when the thing you've always wanted is right there. Why is it that sometimes we just don't do it?
And that's something that a lot of people, especially people on hard journeys, right? Journeys of self-discovery. I think we all struggle with it, right? I think self-sabotage is a very real thing.
Yeah.
From what I've discovered in myself, I think it's embedded within your own predisposed, I guess, fears that you've been drilled into your own head, right? So, for example, for me, it was a lot of it was to do with making money, because I come from a family that grew up in quite sort of rough conditions in the sort of Lithuania that became independent after obviously the Soviet Union and everything. And at first it was all going well, but then obviously during the 2008 financial crisis, people lost their jobs. My parents lost a significant part of their income, which is part of the reason why we had to immigrate to the UK in 2009, because we just couldn't survive. So I was always raised around scarcity mindset. And I think what started happening with me is that as soon as I would get close to an opportunity that would get a lot of money into my daily life, I would shy away from it because I always felt like this wasn't part of me. So I almost had to, well, not almost, I pretty much had to consciously remove it from my mind as a hindrance. And I think it's the same thing impacted you. There must have been something within your psyche that almost felt like it was, like you said, too easy.
Yeah.
And you started doubting yourself and looking for all the reasons why it could go wrong and things like that. And good thing is that you didn't say no, right? You didn't cut them off or whatever. So we basically, if anyone from Gravity is watching this, he was having issues with his Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it's in my draft.
It's in the draft somewhere, and he's gonna send it as soon as he gets back home, because maybe the reason behind that was, and I always think that, I think my mom always says that, and it's a very powerful thing that I always live by, is that everything happens for a reason.
Everything happens for a reason.
So maybe back in the day, if you would have replied to that email and you would have went to the factory and you would have made a video, you would have gotten 5,000 views.
Yeah.
They would have been like, oh, this is pretty cool. We really appreciate you coming down, and
goodbye.
Goodbye. Whereas now, maybe you're gonna build up the courage to obviously get in touch with them. They're gonna look at your socials and they're gonna be like, you know what? How about we do a proper video?
Yeah, proper collaboration.
And we'll let you fly the thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how their whole setup was, but what I'm trying to say is that maybe now is going to be the right time to do it.
I agree.
And maybe subconsciously back then it wasn't the right time to do it, because, you know, call it faith, call it the higher powers that work above us. There must have been a reason why you didn't respond back in that day. But I think, like I said, everything happens for a reason, and I'm sure we're going to be seeing a video on your page very soon of you going to the facility. That's
the dream, man.
And everything like that. So
I was out, when I reached out to them, I was actually quite like, I didn't just reach out for no reason, right?
Yeah.
So they have a race series which was postponed due to COVID, but they have a race series which is basically, they want to do jetpack racing around the world for one reason and one reason only, is to inspire more kids into STEM, into science, technology. So I told them, listen, I want to come join you for that, and I want to create a series on my page where I educate about the rockets to inspire more people and young people into STEM. So it's like, I document the race series and I document the engineering behind the race series to help more young people understand what's going on with these jetpacks and how they fly. So I had an idea in mind of how I can add value to them, but I think, like, you're right, my page was like, I was probably on about 5,000 followers back then. Now it's 130 something.
Do you think that was part of what kind of subconsciously stopped you?
Maybe.
Was it part of that like imposter syndrome when you're like, I'm not good enough, I'm not big enough, which most of us struggle with, right? I mean, like you said, whether that's a role that we're currently in at our job or whether that's our entrepreneurial pursuits, I think a lot of us get hit with that feeling in the back of our mind where it's like, I don't belong here.
Yeah, I'm not good enough for this.
And especially when you come from another country, and maybe some of us, luckily I never struggled with that too much, but I know that some immigrants feel like they don't even belong in the country in the first place. Whether that's through direct impact of, you know, racism, xenophobia, bullying and abuse, or whether that's just their own internal state. But going back to you talking to them about helping them out with their project, I think that's the true power of entrepreneurial pursuits that are value-based. Because I feel like someone like yourself, I mean, I don't know your deeper motives, but I feel like looking at your content, you don't chase the ad revenue or the followers or the views, you chase value.
Yeah.
And to you especially, it's inspiring people who were in a position that you once were in. So I think that's what makes it so much easier to work the way you work and operate the way you operate. Because like you said, when you started off your entrepreneurial journey, you would, like everyone, you were chasing money. So you went onto a property investment course, which I guess, I don't know how much passion you had for property. Right, but you chased the money.
Yeah.
And I was exactly the same from sort of, when I decided that, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur from sort of 17, 18 years old onwards, I was your typical guy who chases money in everywhere possible, you know.
I can't lie, Rich Dad Poor Dad messes you up like that a little bit. It made me, bro, let me tell you something. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad right after I read a book called The Power of Now. The power of now is all about like spiritual grounding and stuff like that. I went from being the happiest spiritually, like I lived in the moment so much. After I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I went down this rabbit hole of just looking for money, and it was so destructive, to be honest with you. It was that balance. That balance is the key, because either end of the scale was really unhealthy. What do you think?
I think for me, it's my definition of money that significantly changed the way I approached it. So initially I approached money as this, basically it's a currency, you needed to survive, you needed to eat, and you needed to have all these luxuries in life, because I came, like I said, from scarcity mindset. I thought that money was gonna solve all my problems. And now I pretty much call them freedom tokens.
Freedom tokens. I like that.
And it's not my definition. I think I heard someone else use it, but I think it's powerful, because now I see money as a means to an end, and to me that end is essentially financial freedom.
Yeah.
It's the freedom to wake up in the morning and do what I want to do, right? So now I chase money in a sense of like, I want to have enough where I can focus on doing what I love doing, but I never want money to be slave to the money.
Yeah.
Like we all know people who work in certain careers that they don't enjoy at all because they pay well, and even though they have money, then maybe they have the nice cars and the nice house and they go on nice holidays, but everything in between is just misery.
Misery. All through and through misery, yeah.
And I'm not saying money is not important, because I think in a modern society, if you don't have money, you don't have the freedom to choose what you want to do, right? You get forced into a career you don't want to be part of, and living in a place where you don't want to live, and doing things you don't want to do. So you do need the money, but I think once I started chasing value, my journey changed completely. So even with this podcast, I'm not there going, okay, who's the guest that I can get that will get me the most views and the most growth and the most ad revenue? I'm there like, okay, who can I get on that would be interesting to talk to and that would provide a lot of value for people watching?
Yeah.
And even someone like yourself, I think if I'm watching this podcast and maybe I'm in STEM, or maybe I'm someone who loves aviation, I think you would provide huge value, right? And just like your content, it's value driven. When I watch your content, I don't look at it as like, oh, this guy is farming views, or it's all clickbait content. It's like, you won't believe what happens at Heathrow Airport at night.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, like some of it is designed to attract views, but I think most of your videos, if not all, are value driven.
I don't put out a video if I think that this isn't gonna either add like information or is gonna inspire in some way. Like otherwise, what's the point? Like
exactly, and I think that's most of the people I watch as well. They're all very value driven, right? Because you get tired of the same salesy YouTubers or podcasters that just use it as a platform to make sales. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't make money of what they're good at. I think that's incredible if you can do that, but I think it should all be value driven first of all. I think one thing I really want to touch on is your recent triathlon experience as well.
Oh, yeah.
Again, like he does so many things. I had like a list in my head of all the things I want to speak about. So how did that go?
The trials, bro, they're tough. They're hard.
Yeah,
So
I would have thought so.
I signed up for the Olympic plus distance, which is what they do in the Olympics, but double the amount of cycling instead of that. So it was a 1.5 kilometers of swimming, 80 kilometers of cycling, and then 10 kilometers of running. And I didn't really train for it as much as I should have trained for it, but it was one of those challenges. I was like, you know what, let's see what my mind is capable of. Not what my body is capable of, but what my mind is capable of, because I know that it's all in the mind. This is my third triathlon that I've done. And I remember when I started the run of my second triathlon the last time, my legs were already cramping and I was so tired, and I was like, how am I going to do this? But I promised myself, you're just never not going to stop running. So when I started this triathlon, all I did is I told myself, you're not going to stop, no matter what.
That is
keep going.
People don't understand how powerful that is, right? I mean, the last podcast I filmed with Steve Higgins, who used to run ultra marathons, funny enough. So he ran, I think his longest one he did, I think it's either 100 miles or 100 kilometers in 24 hours.
Wow.
Which is insane. With me and running, I think it's the same thing. And I was telling him that during lockdown, when lockdown started, so I think it's late 2019 or 2020 actually, early 2020, I started running. I was always into powerlifting, weightlifting, so I was quite a heavy guy. And I couldn't run 200 meters. Like I could run it, but I would be dying
I
afterwards.
remember, bro, you used to be a wedge, bro.
Yeah, I was a big boy, and to me, it was incredibly hard to run, and I always sort of shied away from it, and I was like, I'm never gonna run. I hate it. It's the worst. Like, I'm just not gonna run. It's not for me. And at the end of lockdown, I ran my first marathon. It was not official. It was just me coming out one day. I remember it was a hot summer day. I woke up and I went to my brother. I was like, can you ride on the bike next to me? I want to do 15K. Because the furthest I've ever ran was 10K, because I started getting into running. I started getting a bit better at running. But the furthest I've ever ran was 12K. And I said, let me do 15K. So I'm there, I stock up, I went and got like Gatorade, I think, or Powerade or whatever, like 3 bottles.
With energy.
Yeah, and like 2 bottles of water, 3 bottles of water, whatever it was. Basically, not enough, even for a half marathon. And then I started running and I'm like 10K in, it's hard. And I'm like 15K, yes. But then I remember I was on this David Goggins craze at the time. And he has a saying where like, when you feel like you're done, you're only 40% done. 40%. And I was like, I'm gonna do a half marathon. So I kept running, hit the half marathon point, my legs are shot, and I was like, how crazy of a story it would be if I did a marathon? And I was like, surely not. Needless to say, I've done it, but
mad.
It was like the other half, like after the half marathon, was purely my mind.
Yep.
My body was shot to bits. My body was shot to bits, but like you, I told myself like, everything after the half marathon mark is gonna be a waste if I don't finish it. So I'm just not gonna stop.
Yeah.
I don't care if I pass out, if I vomit. The only way I can stop is if my body shuts down physically.
Completely, yeah. But it doesn't. That's the thing. It doesn't just shut down.
And by no means
it's there going, shit, he's onto
I
us.
guess we're doing it, Jesus. And by no means do I recommend doing it, but what it taught me is that you're so much more powerful than you think.
Yeah, man.
So much more powerful. And I think you're the perfect embodiment of that when you said that once you make a commitment in your head that you're not going to stop, you don't stop. And since then, I've done so many things. I've done the 4x4x48 challenge.
Tell me about that, man. That sounds insane.
So I actually had the whole thing
filmed. You failed it a few times, didn't you?
No.
Was it?
No. I've done it first try, but
you did it first try. Okay.
So I actually had the whole thing filmed, but I've never posted it. Funny enough, it was all about my lack of self-belief, because I was gonna be like a fitness YouTuber. So, and I was gonna be my first video, but because they always used to do well on YouTube, these challenge videos. And I set out to do it in like middle of UK winter. So I had to run, I think I started off at 6 a.m., then 10 a.m., then 2 p.m., and then 6 p.m. So obviously that's already dark. Then it's like 10 p.m., then 2 a.m., and then 6 a.m. So all of those runs were in the dark. And I have videos of me running, sort of, it's, pouring with rain. It's like a storm, super windy, because I've done it. I used to live in Beckton, so right next to Excel where you did your triathlon. So I ran it sort of along Excel, and the wind there was just ridiculous. But once I committed to it, I was like, I'm not going to stop. And you running, because obviously your mind starts going crazy because you're not sleeping enough, you're not eating enough. But I've done it, and I think that's such a transferable skill, and I feel like you would agree to everything in life.
Yeah.
If you commit to something and you're like, I'm not going to quit, it's the most powerful thing ever.
It's that commitment, because you can very easily quit.
Yeah.
Or you can not quit.
I think I heard someone say that you need to identify with whatever you're trying to achieve. So for example, if you're trying to quit smoking, don't go into it being like, well, I think I'm going to try to quit smoking. Be like, from tomorrow, I don't smoke.
Yeah.
I'm a non-smoker. Like I'm sure with you, when you committed to creating your personal brand, you didn't go with it like, oh, maybe I'll do a couple of videos, whatever. You're like, no, this is me now.
What it was, this is my way out. It was like, I don't want to get into property. I don't want to get into, I don't see myself building a business like a supermarket or something, or like a Ocado or anything like that. I see myself building a personal brand and being able to get out of the rat race using this.
Was it challenging to get out there at first? So speaking in front of the camera and...
I still have all of my first takes from the first ever video that I wanted to make. Literally, I had like 15 different attempts to film this video. It was so nerve-wracking, man.
The 4x4x48 video, there's about 15 clips of me, and I have it on the Dropbox somewhere, of me going, what's happening?
Literally.
Hey guys, today I'm, because it feels so alien talking in front of the camera, right? But I think what helped me is that imagining that I'm talking to all the people who are watching, and it's selfish of me not to talk to them because I have something to help them with.
Yeah.
In my case, is connecting them to people like yourself, because I'm not the focus on these podcasts. It's the guests, right? And that's the reason why I got in touch with you, is because of the value that you can provide them.
I appreciate that.
You know, I don't want to have a podcast about gossip or whatever. I want to have a podcast where people look at it and they're like, wow, I've really learned something today. And I think that's the case with you. So let's look into
you have a lot to add as well, man. You have to, you know.
I hope so.
You have a lot to add, man. You've got a mindset of steel.
That was another thing I learned from, I think it was Alex Hormozy, who spoke about, you know, how to build up your businesses and things like that. And he said, great thing to start with is to focus what you can already provide them with. And for me, it was having a network of very interesting individuals around me, and absolutely loving to talk to people. Like I genuinely enjoy it. I enjoy having these kind of conversations. And is that something that was part of your journey as well? Sort of looking at your strengths and looking at your skills, or did it sort of just kind of develop?
100%. Not only looking at my skills and my strengths, but also looking at what access I have. Do you know what I mean? My levels of access, my information that I hold within my brain, everything, man. There's a book called The Unfair Advantage, which I'd recommend everyone to read. And the book goes like this. It's like every single human being that has been successful utilized a series of unfair advantages. And the unfair advantages can either be in money, they can be intelligence, they can be skills, they can be so many different things. They can be a mindset. So for me, when I looked at for myself, I've been making videos for about 8 years now.
Wow.
I made my first video on YouTube when I was like back in 2016. Yeah. I made like a GoPro style travel video, and I loved making videos.
Yeah.
That was one thing. I'm a very good at explaining complicated things in simple ways.
I mean, I see people on Instagram, when they go to Heathrow, they're always posting stories about trying to talk like you, because you have a very particular style of explaining the things that you see around you. So yeah, that's definitely part of it.
Yeah.
And you can convey so complicated topics into I think it's quite an easier to understand way, which is what makes you so great at what you do.
Yeah. So that's something that I genuinely identified within myself. I'm like, I can take something really complicated and explain it to someone in 30 seconds really simply. And I realized that no one, like when in engineering, no one can do that. Like I ask an engineer a simple question and he gives me the most complicated answer. And I'm like, why can't you give me a simple answer? But until I broke it down and I started to understand it, I was like, you know what? I can do this. I can explain complicated stuff to people in simple ways. And I just looked at all, like I'm born into an age of the internet. I have access to social media. I enjoy social media. Let's do this, right? I put it all together and I was like, how can I make a living out of this?
It's funny you saw that, you said that you've been making videos for 8 years, right? Because I know that recently you had some reels of yours and some TikToks blow up, right?
Yeah.
So that obviously led to you gaining a lot of followers, getting a lot of exposure. But I guess a lot of people would look at that and go, oh, he got lucky.
Yeah, overnight success.
Yeah, overnight success. Like, well, he got lucky. Look at him. He had like 2 million views in a video. So obviously he got lucky.
Yeah.
But what they don't see is that you spent 8 years building up to this moment.
Yes.
To get lucky. And they say what? Success is when preparation meets opportunity,
Yes.
right? So you're building up on the preparation. And then obviously with TikTok, with Instagram Reels, the opportunity came to get a lot of exposure. So let's touch a little bit on your TV appearance with
ITV.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about that for people who don't know.
Yeah, so you know what? This didn't start this year. This started like 2 years ago, right? When let's talk about like opportunity meets preparation, right? At that time, I knew that the ITV people wanted to find interesting projects so they can film, put it on TV. I knew that that's their goal, right? That's what they want to do. They're going to be around Heathrow Airport. They got opportunities going to be there. But if I don't have an interesting project, then I'm not going to be able to be on there. So at the time, I really thought about this like 6 months in advance before I approached them. I'm like, let me look around. Let me see if there's something that actually I can make here that is going to be interesting enough to capture on TV. And I was in the baggage system back then. So when I was in the baggage system, I saw an issue that I was like, you know what, I can solve this problem. And I began solving this problem. And I was like, damn, this could be the thing. This could be the thing that I take to TV. And I approached the producer. I'm like, this is the problem that I'm going to solve, and this is how I'm going to solve it. and I saw his eyes like light up. He's like, oh, we need to capture this. We need to do this. I was like, all right, cool. Come with me and I'll do it. So that preparation, or I knew this is what they're looking for, and I looked at my own surroundings and I was like, what can I do to make sure that when I meet this opportunity, I'm ready?
Yeah, that's really powerful. Like you said, it's like looking at what can you do now.
Yeah, right now.
To progress.
Yeah. A lot of people think, oh, see, they look at what they don't have, right? They're like, I don't have this and I don't have that. But when you start thinking about the stuff that you don't have, you're instantly missing what you do have. Instantly. So the focus needs to be shifted of actually, what do I actually have right now? And then make the most out of that.
It's funny enough, that's how Faster Living actually started back in 2017. I watched a video by Gary Vee, and hate him or love him, the guy is incredible at what he does, right? And there was a video he made on YouTube called Just Start. I think that's what it's called. And all that video is he's like, what is the thing you can start today that will get you closer to your end goal?
Yeah.
And to me, my end goal was like, I want to work with supercars. I love supercars, and I want to get into the space, but obviously it's a very exclusive space to get into. You know, you need to have a lot of money, or you need to have some kind of connections. And I was like, well, I'm decent at social media. What if I start an Instagram page? I was at university. It was sort of next year after I quit Brunel, funny enough. And I was like, I can be at university and I can just be posting pictures and videos of cars.
Yeah.
And that obviously then grew into, you know, a page with over 1 million followers, and the craziest thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah, but it must have opened up so many opportunities in real life as well.
Insane amount of opportunities, and you know, I've been blessed enough to ride in some of the most expensive cars in the world, and be part of some incredible projects and journeys, and most importantly, meet incredibly interesting people. But it's only because I've looked at what I had at that time and said, how can I make it work? Yeah. Which I think you took that and you absolutely 10x'd it. Yeah, that's what I did as well. But then you also give back, right? Let's talk a little bit about you run an educational platform, or what is it? So there's something like that, right? I like
to teach young people about things that I wish I knew, right? So I run like a coaching for kids platform. A lot of people think about coaching and they'll think about for adults, right? But I think if we start to coach kids early on 3 main things: mindset, confidence, and communication, we can completely change their life. If we teach them the fundamentals of their mindset, their confidence, and their communication skills, and we really get them to a place where they're excelling at those 3 things, no matter what industry they choose to focus on, they can be the best at it. So I run a coaching program for kids where I teach them about these things, basically.
I think that's very important, is that giving them the tools rather than, as they say, giving them the winning lottery numbers. Because by the time you give them the numbers, it's too late. Yeah. The lottery's already happened. So it's no use telling people, okay, this is exactly how I did it, because you had so many different factors come into play. But if you teach them the core fundamentals that led to your success, I think that sets them up in life really well. So that kind of moves me on to a topic that I ask all of my guests. Where do you see yourself in 10 years' time?
I just want to continue educating people about the things that I learned. So I think education is a 2-way process. Number 1, I need to educate myself, and number 2, then I can take that information that is in my brain and share it onto people. In what capacity, in what way? I mean, social media wasn't a thing 10 years ago, but here I am for using social media as a tool. So I don't know what tool I'll be using in the years to come to educate, but I just know that I love seeing people's eyes light up when they've learned something new, when you've helped them see the world in a different way. That's something that I want to continue doing for a very long time, is actually helping people see the world differently to what they currently see it as, and then liberating them and empowering them in the process of doing that. So whether that's within the engineering space, whether that's within the personal development space, that's up to interpretation. Let's see where life takes me, but I want to do this for a living on a global, international scale where, you know, I can help millions of people. That's what I want to do.
Well, I'm sure that's exactly what's going to happen, seeing that the tangent that you're currently on, right? It seems to be all leading towards that. So if someone's watching it now and they want to get into engineering, you know, they're just leaving school and something like that, what kind of resources would you recommend to them that they can look into right now to accelerate their journey, or what do you think they should be focusing on to achieve success in the field?
For any young person who's looking to get into engineering, like my best advice at the moment, especially depending on what age you are, of course, but I'd just say spend time on YouTube figuring out what you actually are curious about. Because people commit way too quickly to something when they don't actually know much about it. But choose something where the more you learn about it, the more interested you become. Because when you choose something that you're interested in, then your journey in life is not something that's going to be boring, because the more you learn about it, the more you're going to be sucked into it, and the more you're going to actually be interested in it. I think that's a very, very important thing, where you have to feed that curiosity that you have within, and you need to realize that your curiosity is going to be different to your parents' curiosity and your cousin's curiosity and your brother's curiosity. You have to think about, what is it about me? What do I want to do? And remember that it's about you only. You're going to be working in your career. You're going to be doing that job. Don't just follow whatever anyone else is doing. Do it because you want to do it. That's what I'd say, man.
That's powerful. I think that's something that episode 1, Tim Cooper, he said the same thing, is that let curiosity lead the way.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to try new things, dip your toes into all sorts of different subjects, because I think that's why your late teens, your early 20s, that's what it's there for.
Yeah.
It's to try different things. Last thing you want to do is to do something you hate for the rest of your life, right? I think I'm going to end on that. It's been a powerful conversation. I've got so many things now in my head I'm trying to marinate. it's thank you so much for your time, Mo. It's been incredible, and looking forward to seeing what your future brings to you. So before we go, how do people find you on socials?
Just write The Airport Guy. Just The Airport Guy, 3 separate words, and the tag is motivate.
Listen, that's how much he's claimed the space. He's like, just write The Airport Guy, you'll find me. I'll come up.
That's what, imagine I work at Heathrow, right? When people are like, oh, so what's your Instagram handle? I'm like, just write The Airport Guy. They're like,
you'll find me.
Yeah, they're like, what? The airport guy? I'm like, yeah, you'll figure it out.
In a year, it's going to be like, yeah, just type Heathrow. Yeah, I'll come up. You'll come up above the airport.
Well, that being said, I actually have, if you add TikTok and Instagram followers, I have more followers than Heathrow themselves.
There you go. Again, thanks so much.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a like, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.